I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step. So who the heck am I and why am I doing this? Well, I'm an entrepreneur, New York Times bestselling author, rookie researcher, and I'm simply a curious person. I've spent the last 15 years around professional why-notters. This show was created because I believe the world will be a better place if more of us start asking ourselves, why not now? And not just ask the question, but understand how to take action. And we're not talking kittens and unicorns here. You've already done the dreaming. Now it's time for the doing. I know it's not as easy as it sounds. That's why we're going to practice together. Why not now? Let's get after it. Hey, everybody. Today we get to hear from my friend, Julie Foudy. She's an Olympic gold medalist and ESPN broadcaster. But most importantly, she's a pioneer who has paved the way for women in sports. If it weren't for Julie and her team once asking, well, why isn't there a Women's World Cup? And why isn't there women's soccer in the Olympics? Who knows where we'd be? Because they put those events on the map. Julie is a special soul. She's just fun. After listening, I'm pretty sure you'll understand why I want to be Julie Foudy when I grow up. Before we get started, I want to fill you in on something that's made a big difference in my life, and that's Headspace. I'm grateful to have them as a sponsor of this episode. Headspace is a guided meditation app that I've been using for the past couple of months, and it's the first time I've ever been able to meditate consistently. I've tried to adopt various forms of mindfulness off and on for the past 10 plus years, and this is the first time something has actually stuck. And call it what you want, meditation, mindfulness. Sometimes I just call it my ready, set, pause or adult timeout. It takes 10 minutes each day, and it's helped me quiet my mind. My aunt used to say, don't let anything rent space in your head for free. That's valuable real estate. Well, Headspace allows me to become a much better landlord of my thoughts and self-talk, which is a big one for me. You can go to headspace.com/why not now for a free 10-day trial. And if you stick around to the end of the show, I'll tell you how you can get a month for free. Now, here's Julie. Hello, Julie Foudy. How are you today? I'm excited to have you on the show.
I am fantastic.
Good. That's awesome. That's probably
I'm sweaty, straight from camp. The best kind. You just get a little sweat on when you're out there with kids.
Which is awesome, and we will talk a little bit about that as well. I'm excited to dive in. But to get us started, given what you've accomplished and just the situations you've been in your life, can you think of a time when you were faced with that why not now question?
How many times can I give you, Amy Jo? I have about 15.
I'm sure you do, but something that you think will really help all of us as we navigate through the question, really kind of dissect what were you doing? How were you able to navigate through it?
I think my first why not now moment, I'll go to my first one because I think this was the most impactful, started when we were still on the national team. So we had just gotten on the national team, Mia Hamm, myself, Christine Lilly, when we were the young teenagers on the national team. And mind you, the national team back in the 80s is not like the national team of today. There wasn't much publicity or marketing or awareness around the women's team. And so we were really that first generation of players coming through and fighting for just, hey, I can't live on $10 a day per diem. And now we're traveling a lot and I can't keep a job because I'm on the road a lot with the national team. And could we possibly get a little bit more than $10 a day? And really at that time, in the late 80s, there was no Women's World Cup. It didn't even exist. There was no women's soccer in the Olympics. And the really cool moment we had as young little feisty teenagers was this point where we basically said, well, why not? Why isn't there a Women's World Cup? And why isn't there women's soccer in the Olympics? And people looked at us kind of cross-eyed and told us we were crazy in that there weren't enough girls who played soccer or cared about soccer or wanted to play soccer, and that it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen for a long, long time. And the great part about that team, and what I always smile upon, is, we were in our late teens going into college, and we had the presence of mind to push back on when people told us no and told us we were crazy. Instead of saying, okay, and walking away and being frustrated by that, we basically said, well, why not? And that was what we kept asking. Why isn't there? Why not? Why isn't there a Women's World Cup? Why don't we have women's soccer in the Olympics? You've had it for men for over 100 years. Why can't the women be in there? And we just resisted taking no as an answer. And it's what I love most about the women's national team with that first generation group. We asked a lot of questions. We went to a lot of different people and sought their advice from, people like Billie Jean King, the legendary tennis player, who was a great mentor and still is a great friend and mentor. So I think that was the first moment in my life where I realized the power of asking the question, why not?
I love it. It's such a powerful example on many fronts, but so what did that look like? Did you get together and create kind of these meetings behind the scenes and decide how you were going to go about it? And what was the very first step? Who kind of started the dialogue?
Yeah, exactly. We did do that. And that's, again, I think the amazing thing is, as young women, we were being told that by our federation, our U.S. Soccer Federation, you know what, you should be happy you're getting $10 a day in per diem, and that we are giving you the chance to play for your country, and that we actually have a women's national team, and that you have the opportunity. And we were grateful for all of that. But it got to a point where we just couldn't afford to play and live without a little more than $10 a day. And so what we were saying to them is, we get it. We're grateful. And we are incredibly honored that we're playing for our national team. But at the same time, we notice the men's team is staying at 5-star hotels and flying first class and getting paid salaries. And we aren't getting any of that. And we're traveling more, and we can become popular. So if you market us and spend and invest on us, then we think that this can really take off in this country. So for a group of young women to have the courage to stand up against the Federation and say, thank you, but it's not good enough, and we should be doing better, and we should be providing more opportunities for younger girls behind us, really, when I look back on it, was remarkable. And it took us probably 6 years of getting tired of the situation and it building up for us to finally, as a group, come together and say, okay, enough. We need to do something about that. And that's when we collectively went to the Billie Jean Kings of the world and said, and this is the great thing about Billie Jean King is, she basically shared her story about tennis and how they broke off and formed $1 contracts with their round table of women and committed to starting the Women's Tennis Association, and what that took and what mistakes she made and what she learned from it, and how we could, make sure we didn't replicate the same mistakes. And so she mentored and passed on all this wisdom to us and gave us the courage to keep asking the questions, why not? Why not? Why can't we have this? Why can't we do this? And in a professional and respectful way. So we would get together for meetings. I remember once flying home from the first time I had met Billie Jean King, and we were actually supposed to sign a new contract with the team. And I came back in, and I was like, it was like this epiphany when you meet with Billie Jean, who basically was like, Foudy, you cannot go in there and do that. You need to fight as players together. You have leverage finally. And she was really the one who pushed me to push the team and say, if we had a blank canvas, what would it look like for that next generation? It's not about you. It's about that next group. You're fighting for them. That's what you need to keep in mind.
So you had this, you went and you found a supporter, someone that could really help with that megaphone and that consistency, though. I mean, you spent 6 years until finally it would have been so easy to give up. And you clearly didn't. When it comes to that time frame, do you think your age had a lot to do with the kind of fight and feistiness, or what was that tipping point that convinced them?
I think that's a great question, Amy Jo. I think it was a couple things. I think it helps that you were younger, but I don't think you have to be young. I think it helps that we were a little bit naive to the process. So there's an innocence in that ignorance in a way. But I look back, and the one thing that always rang true with our team was this unity. We found a group of women who believed in something with incredible passion, and we stuck together. And it's, what I preach to our girls at the Leadership Academy, that when you have a dream and you find people around you that believe in that dream and will build you up as you start to doubt if that dream is a reality and can become a reality, you need that team around you. And that was what we had. We had this group of women. When one person would start to doubt and go, maybe this isn't the right thing, because they may not let us even have a World Cup if we keep fighting, or they may not let us go to the Olympics if we keep fighting for more. There were enough of us at that time that would say, no, we're good. We're fine. As long as we stick together and stay unified as one voice, we're good. And it really taught me the power of that support group and who you have around you, and the importance of building that team in the right way and getting people that buy in to what you believe in. Because as we all know, there's also those friends that are around us that say, that's silly. That is crazy. What are you guys thinking? And so you start to doubt, as we all do in life, whether that dream is going to be realistic. And so I think that's the one thing. I think the other thing is, there was this great quote I read, and I think it was probably around in college, and it said, the quote goes, success isn't a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. And that has driven so much of my life, that everything we do in life is a choice, and how we respond to things, the attitude we take when we have a setback. Do you mope, or are you motivated to do more? And the power of choosing to believe you're going to do this dream, or you're going to finish this dream, or the power to believe that you have exactly that, the power to change your life. And that has been such a powerful moment in my life of continuing to ask why not, and challenge people with why not.
Excellent. So with the women out there that are thinking about addressing the question, whether it's equal pay or some sort of imbalance, there's probably a lot of fear. Like, what if I lose my job? What if this backfires on me? What would you say to them?
I would say that I had to learn that fear is a very normal emotion, and not to fear, right? Instead, to face the fear. And that's not an easy thing, as we all know in life. There's this great image I always keep in my head, where it's got a small circle. It says your comfort zone, and it's a small circle in the left-hand corner. And outside of that comfort zone, it says where the magic happens. And it's another thing we talk a lot about with young girls at the academies of, fear. Fear means you're growing. Fear is not something that you want to shut out of your life. And if you tell me a person in life that doesn't have fear, and I will say to you, they're a robot, right? And that in fact, fear just means you're pushing yourself to outside your comfort zone. And that's a healthy thing, because when you get outside of that comfort zone, there's a world out there that is shiny and bright and happy, and you can belong in it and you will thrive in it. You won't just survive in it, you'll thrive in it. So I think once you come to terms with the fact that, oh my gosh, I had an assistant coach once tell me, when I would say, look, I get these terrible butterflies before games, and this fear, like, oh my gosh, maybe I don't belong here, or this, I'm not ready for this moment. And she said to me, and it was one of the most wise things that I've ever been told. Her name is Dr. Colleen Hacker. She said, butterflies are a great thing. And I said, really? Why? And she goes, because they mean you care. They mean it matters. They mean that there's a visceral emotional reaction. And she said, now just teach them to fly in formation. Oh. And I was like, aha, you're right.
I love it.
You're right. So ever since then, I embrace that fear, and I just figure out a strategy to channel that emotion in a positive way. Because again, going back to that quote, I control what thoughts go in my mind. So control that you're going to put positive thoughts in there and that you're going to be fine, even if you have to fake it.
Oh, I love that. The butterflies flying in formation. I always think about the size of my butterflies, and sometimes they turn to pterodactyls, and that's when I need to kind of check myself. And the butterflies are good. We don't need any dinosaurs though. So that's a great way to visualize those butterflies just taking action, getting things done. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about the topic of equal pay, because you've talked about it so much, and you've been really leading the way, especially recently with the conversation around the U.S. women's soccer team. But I think it's important for people to learn from you. Yes, the arena you've been discussing this has been in sports, but what have you learned throughout this process that can be applied to women in other careers, such as business?
Well, I think the hardest thing is just stepping up and finding your voice and being willing to be a dissenting opinion. And again, I go back to the different periods in my life, and I've learned all these wonderful lessons through sports, but having the confidence to say, I'm going to raise my hand and I'm going to say it even if I know it's not going to be loved, or I'm going to step forward even though I know it's not going to be a popular decision, and caring so deeply about something that you're willing to put yourself out there and risk falling and risk scraping up your knees and getting scabby and picking yourself up. And that's really the mindset that I've learned over the years of, and what really helps in all of that, Amy Jo, as you know, is having a good sense of humor and keeping it in perspective. I mean, one of the things that we used to do a lot with the national team is if it didn't work, we would kind of fail and laugh and repeat, fail, laugh, repeat. And that was our mantra of, why does the sky have to be the limit? When people say the sky's the limit, well, why does the sky have to be the limit? Why not? Why is there a limit? Let's keep pushing forward. So I go back to getting a team around you that when you have those moments of doubt, because we all have them, that will say, you're fine, keep stepping forward, keep raising your hand, you're fine. Because people are going to bat at you from all sides and beat you down when you're trying to change things. But good Lord, if we don't have those people in life that are willing to step out and be different, then the world would be a very boring and sad place, in my opinion.
True. I love that. Fail, laugh, and repeat. I can just imagine, you guys are accomplishing what you're accomplishing, and behind the scenes having that sense of humor and using that as a strategy too. I remember having a conversation with you a few years ago, Julie, at the ESPN W Summit, and I was really researching what is it about certain women that kind of are able to accelerate that process of breaking through. And you said to me something so profound. You said, I think competitive, and we talked a lot about how sports and leadership are aligned, but you said you think of being competitive as more of a unit, as a team, not competitive necessarily as me against you. You had that competitiveness of my team. And you've spent a lot of time around women powerhouse leaders, not just athletes, but all walks of life. What are the top few things you've noticed about women who have really been able to break through, whether it's the glass ceiling or whatever you want to call it?
Mm-hmm. I think they're collaborative, and I think there's a misconception that, and especially the first women that broke through, the first generationers Billie Jean King and I were just discussing. I think there's a misconception that those women, because they broke through, didn't want other women to get through, because it's like, oh God, I made it. Thank God. I'm not going to help anyone else get here and take my spot. And I think that's false. I have found that the women who break through are incredibly collaborative. And when you care about things in a meaningful and thoughtful way and show that you're vulnerable and show that you're going to make mistakes along the way and it's okay to do so, then people want to rally behind that, right? Because it's authentic. It's you, and it's not a false bravado that you're throwing out there. And so I find the most successful women I admire have done it in a way that isn't me first, it's we first, and have done it in a way that clearly you are individually competitive, and I would never take that away from someone, but the end game isn't just you getting there, it's everyone getting there. And I think, one of the greatest strengths of women is we make sure we're completely qualified and certified and ready when we take on a job. But I also think it's one of our greatest weaknesses in that we sometimes wait until all the boxes are checked on a list to raise our hand. And the women who are willing to say, hey, look, I don't have everything, but I have enough. And men are great at this, right? I'll raise their hand for anything. They'll raise their hand for anything. The women who say don't need every box checked, but say I'm willing to step out and do this because I know I can lead in a great way, are the women that break through, and that's a hard thing, I think, for women. I'm clearly overgeneralizing because not all women are like that.
But research shows, absolutely. I mean, the data is there, and it comes back to why not now? You don't need to wait and wait. And I really like to bring data and numbers into the discussion because I think that's one way to enter the conversation and have a little bit more of an objective feel to it, especially in getting more men to listen, more corporate companies to kind of see how women leadership impacts the bottom line. There's a lot of research that just came out that really kind of demonstrates how women strong leadership impact the bottom line, and we need those numbers. Have you come across any data that you think would be helpful for people to not only know, but helpful to start the conversation about gender equality or just specifically equal pay?
The thing that always blows my mind, and I was studying up on this recently because of the whole FIFA mess, which is our international governing body for soccer, and it took them 100 years before they put their first woman on the board. Their first woman, by the way, 100 years. And that was only, I think, in 2009, so 7 years ago. Now they have 3 women on the board. And so they are way behind in so many gender equity issues. And I have never been a huge fan of quotas. However, one of the things I learned in this process by asking a lot of women who sit at very high level companies and sit on their board and run global companies is they say, sometimes you get to a place in cultures where if they are unwilling to shift in terms of gender equity, the only thing that gets them to shift is if you wield that hammer of a quota. And what they have found in countries that have done that, Germany, France, Norway instituted a 40% quota on all public companies. They had to have 40% of their board represented by women. The country went, what? How can we do this? What they have shown since they've done that is the companies that have instituted that 40% quota of diversity in women are more successful, or more profitable, are more global, and it clearly, and there's these wonderful stats out there that these countries that have instituted these quotas just to force these companies to add women to their board are now more successful or more profitable. And it makes perfect sense, as we know, Amy Jo, because you get a diversity of opinion. You get different thought leaders. You have so many of your consumers are women buying products. So why wouldn't you want their ideas sitting at that table making decisions about the company? So, and those companies that say, oh, there's no women that are qualified, they're just fishing from the same pond, right?
Right.
They're going for the same fish. The whole idea is you need to go to a different pond.
Exactly. I mean, even Warren Buffett has said, we will do incredibly well in this world if we allow more women leadership because of that missing voice. When you were talking about Billie Jean King, I was getting chills. Here I have Julie Foudy talking about Billie Jean King to me. This is kind of amazing. It's been 43 years since she beat Bobby Riggs in the Battle of the Sexes tennis match, right? Such a statement at that time for women to be demand, but also we're 4 years away right now from celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the 19th Amendment, women's right to vote, and we have so far to go still. So one of the things I like to focus on is not the battle of the sexes necessarily, given it's 2016, but how we can work together. Have you had very many male mentors, and what would you say would be men's role in all of this?
Oh, yeah. And this is a huge one for me. I'm so glad you asked this question because I've had so many incredible male mentors that have given me life-changing advice and help over the course of my career from television. One of the greatest mentors I've had in television is Mike Tirico, who is obviously very successful at ESPN. He is now over at NBC. And it has been this wonderful friend and mentor, incredible mentor with our national team for many years, is one of our lawyers we had. So I think, and so often in the conversation sometimes when we focus on women, there is a tendency to shut men out of that conversation. And I think that's such a mistake. Just like you don't want to ever shut dads out of the conversation about getting their daughters active and healthy and playing sports. I mean, they as soon as a man has a daughter, they care deeply, of course, about her activity and her health and wellness. So again, I go back to that collaboration and the importance of, and this was a big one for Billie Jean, I know as well, the importance of having men and women be mutually part of that conversation, because together it's such a healthier environment and a more successful one if you can manage it together.
Absolutely. It's, I think, a huge point too that we could really improve, an area that needs some attention, where the conversation sometimes attending conferences and going to certain things, it starts to feel a little bit kumbaya, and it's important for women to discuss and talk about this, but we need more men in this conversation. And I have mainly had male mentors. I really haven't had too many females, and I think it's just been the industries that I've worked in. There are more men. But there is a hesitancy, especially in the U.S., for men to mentor women because of how it might be perceived. Do you have any thoughts on how we can work through that, get over that a little bit more? It's specific to the U.S. in many cases that we're seeing more of this. But if we could have more men in the powerful positions that they're in, with the influence that they have, mentoring women, I can definitely see it helping accelerate this process.
Yeah. I mean, I get the hesitancy by some people in that regard, and some of the issues that have come forward with that. But I just think that if you can create a healthy, safe place, and there's a lot of companies that do it well, where they actually spend time. I mean, you look at Procter & Gamble, for example, and there's a lot of women that work at that great company. And I know some of the senior women who have been there, and they talk about the healthiness of men mentoring them along the way, and women as well. But I think unless you can get men into the equation, you cannot get to that upper level without them. And so figuring out, and every company is different, of course, but a safe place that creates meetings and an environment that actively promotes that. And that's the key, is when you have a company that's actively promoting it and creating those environments, then they're going to be successful. Because I do think it takes work. You know, we used to say on our team chemistry is a verb, not a noun. And I think that's the same way with mentoring. I mean, it takes work to set that up in a large company and corporation to make it actively successful.
Agreed. That's awesome. Switching gears for a moment. So I've heard you talk a little about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and how important that is, especially at the Julie Foudy Sports Leadership Academy, and focusing on that. How do you get comfortable with being uncomfortable?
I actually consider this one of the greatest skill sets in life. And so we talk a lot about this at the leadership academies, that, you know, any situation that happens in life, because there are so many uncomfortable situations in life, if you cannot panic and manage to get through it. And the story we often share, and one thing I use is, I think, about the duck on the pond. I don't know if you've ever heard the story, Make Like a Duck, Amy.
No.
But so, you know, when a duck is on a pond, and I actually physically think this as I'm going through an uncomfortable situation. When a duck is on a pond, they're sitting there, they're chilling out. You know, if you were like walking by this beautiful pond and you saw the duck, you know, it's hanging out, wiping the water off its back, thinking life is good. And you're thinking, this duck is so cool. There's no problems in this duck's life. Gosh, what a life. And then if you took an underwater camera and went under that pond, if you saw the feet of the duck, that duck is fighting and battling and paddling away like crazy with its feet and swimming like crazy just to stay afloat. And so we talk to the kids about Make Like a Duck. People only see the exterior. So even if the inside and those butterflies are going crazy or those pterodactyls are going crazy, right, they don't know that. So make like a duck and act like you're cool. And we had this incredible ability on the national team, actually. We called it Fake It Till You Make It on the national team. Mm-hmm. But it was essentially the same idea of Make Like a Duck. When things were going bad, right? And it's so easy to let you get into that negative body language and you start to panic and everyone starts to panic. And we would pull out humor again, or we would have a joke, or someone would be like, oh, our 500th day in China, eating nothing but Snickers and warm Pepsi. I couldn't think of any other place I'd love to be. And then we'd start talking about, oh my God, I don't want to be in Hawaii. How boring. Who wants to be in Paris shopping? That stinks. Or whatever it is. And all of a sudden you're laughing and you get through it. But I think the fake it till you make it, getting through the uncomfortable, it actually works. You actually train your brain, and by laughing and getting through it, you find that, okay, I can handle this situation. And once you step into that uncomfortable zone and thrive, then you're less hesitant to do it the second time. It really does work. It's crazy.
I love it. All of these visualizations, Julie. We've got butterflies, we've got ducks, pterodactyls. This is awesome. Great example. I think I agree. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is definitely one of my mottos. And I think that's when we are able to see the most growth, really. And it's a practice, right? It's something that we have to continue to do and learn to do, and get that bar just allows you to graduate with that level of uncomfortableness. But
one last story. I was just speaking to this teenager in Ireland who won this big Google Science Fair award. Her and two other Irish teenagers won the global award, like the top award for teenagers, with this incredible experiment that they came up with. And she said, you know, the weird thing is I was so nervous talking to people. That was such a big thing for me, is that I was shy. And so I didn't want to go meet new people. And she said, this science experiment, many of my science experiments require that I have to go ask people and survey them with questions. And so what it did is it forced me to get out of this comfort zone, this science project. And she said, and guess what? I found out that I really like talking to people by doing that. I'm like, imagine that. You like that world that's outside your comfort zone.
That's the best possible scenario.
Because I found I belong in that world outside my comfort zone. I'm like, amen.
Oh, best case. That's awesome. A couple of quick questions. I know that we want to wrap things up here, and you need to get back to your girl. You're at one of your leadership academies, right? You are. Awesome. So how do you keep your mind healthy?
I don't do any like formal meditation, although I would love to start bringing that into my life. My formal meditation it's yoga. I like yoga. Mm-hmm. I like figuring out ways I have found I keep a healthy mindset if I have balance in my life in a healthy way. So 2 kids who are 7 and 9. I love that when I am active and working out, which is such an important piece of the puzzle for me, is just still sweating and getting out there and doing something fun outdoors. I have found I enjoy it the most when I do it with friends. So all these moms, after we drop off our kids at school, we sneak in, an hour or half hour of a workout, and it's my time to catch up with them while we're jogging or while we're doing something active. So I think just that healthy balance of, when I'm with my kids, I'm present with them. And when I'm working, I'm present there. And when I'm, being a wife, I try and be present there. I'm not always incredibly successful at that, as my husband will point out. But I think, structuring your life in a way that, I'm not feeling like, oh gosh, when I'm with the kids, I have to be checking my cell phone because I didn't catch up on these 17 emails, or I have all these, things I need to do while I'm having my 2 hours hanging with my kids. So, and whatever you need to do to structure in your life, like I pay for a woman to come every week to clean the house, because that also keeps my mind healthy when it's not cluttered and disgusting. Mm-hmm. And I say to people all the time, like, look, give up a dinner a week, give up going to the theater a week, and get someone in if that's what matters to you. Like, prioritize how you spend that money for certain things in your life that bring you a healthy mindset. And so I have really tried to figure out ways to create that balance.
Great. Awesome. The why not now question that I end with is about the future. So you've done a lot of things and you are doing a lot of things, but is there something that you've been considering doing that you haven't done yet and it's time to get your why not now on?
Why not now on? I just literally had a why not now come to fruition. Can I tell that one?
Please.
Okay, so for a long time I had thought it wouldn't be cool to write a book, but I'm like this white kid that grew up in suburban America, right? So it's not like look at my background and what I had to overcome book. And so I had all these thoughts early on, like, no one's going to care about reading a book about, this white kid from suburban America.
You're so humble, Julie. It's
or, I didn't want it to be this narcissistic thing, because I think we have plenty of those books out there. And I didn't want it to be even sporty, because I think we have plenty of books about X's and O's. And really, for a long time, I have been so passionate about leadership with young girls and young women. And so I finally thought, well, you keep preaching to these girls about, don't just dream it, sing it, say it out loud. And so I finally went to Disney Publishing, and now Disney is our parent company for ESPN, which is where I work. Mm-hmm. And I said, I think that we need more books out there, and I would love to write something that is authentic and genuine and not sparkly and not princessy. This is to Disney, by the way, to their publishing group, and not princessy. And I kept stressing that. I do not want princessy.
With a capital P, which also starts with pink.
And you cannot do that, then I don't want to write this book. But I want to write it to be in my voice and authentic and fun and talk about the joy of sports and the joy of leadership and the joy of falling and the joy of failure and all these things about getting outside our comfort zone. And to your podcast, Amy, which is why I love what you're doing, to the why notters in this life. And I think they looked at me kind of cross-eyed. And
like, wait, our whole business is around princesses, Julie.
Like, hello, we are Disney. And I thought, oh, maybe this was a mistake. And then they basically said, we agree. We totally need that in that space for young teenagers and young women. And let's do it.
Yes.
And I remember thinking as I walked out of that meeting, oh my God, that could have gone either way. But you had to put it out there. Like, you have to put it out there of, this is what I want to do, and I need it to be in this voice, and here's what I'm really passionate about, and don't make it shiny and sparkly. And they totally bought in. And what's been so amazing in this whole process is they have not only bought in, they've essentially let me keep my voice and let me keep it fun and let me keep it the way I want to do it. And so I constantly hug them and say, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this. And it's another great example of, you have to say it how you want it and be courageous enough to step up and say, okay, this is what I really want, and I'm going to go after it. And it took me probably a couple more years than it should have, but I'm super proud that I'm in the process of writing something that I think will be really cool for a lot of young girls, and not just young girls, but young women who really, it's not even just for sporty people. It's for anyone who is who's maybe at a fork in their career or on their path and doesn't know what to do, and gives them the courage to move forward in a positive way.
This is music to my ears. It truly is. And when you look at that moment where you finally said, I'm going to go to Disney and do this, what did that moment look like? What did that day look like? Was there something specific that might help other people kind of learn from that time frame? Because you've been supporting young girls with your academy, and you've been in this vein for a long time. I mean, all your life, really. But something had to have happened for you to make that decision. What changed? What happened?
I was reading Disney books to my kids, and I thought, gosh, these aren't really uplifting. They're often depressing. You know, the mother dies, or there's a tragedy that happens. It's always the mom dying, and they're saved by a prince. And I remember putting them down and saying to my husband, no more. We're not going to be reading these anymore. I don't want my daughter and my son listening to these stories about a man always saving the woman, or whatever the heartache was. And so I said that to Disney. You know, I said, I really, and I think it was because I have seen the power of giving a positive message to young girls, that I thought, I cannot stay silent about that any longer. And so when I went into them, I said, look, I'm going to go full transparency on you here, and you're either going to love it or hate it. But I actually, my daughter was 8 years old at the time. I said, I steer my daughter away from Disney stores, because I don't want her buying the tiara and the princess dress and the magic wand and thinking she can only be a princess. And they smiled and said, no, we get it. We get it. And we're changing how we define our princesses. They're going to be stronger characters, and we're getting there, and it's taken us some time. And that was the really cool thing, is that they were willing to embrace it. And I put myself out there, and they said, no, we understand, and we know we need this in this space, and this is why we want you to do this book. But I think you get to a point where you go, I care so deeply about something that I cannot be silent anymore, as we're seeing happen in a lot of politics right now, and on both sides of the parties. But I think that's an important step in your life, where you have to stand up and find your voice and say, okay, I'm going to do it because I care so deeply. And that's why you have to find what you care deeply about, because it motivates you to get out of that comfort zone.
Love it. And I know you need to hop. I can't thank you enough. Do you have 1 minute for rapid fire 3 quick questions?
Of course I do, Joe.
But it's we're at our time. I hate being late. Okay. So What
Come
are
on,
you,
bring it. I love rapid fire.
Okay, quick. What are you reading right now? Or what's your all-time favorite book?
Oh, my all-time favorite book is The Power of One by Bryce Courtenay, who, have you read The Power of One?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
No, but I'm writing
So
it down.
good. About a South African boxer who grew up with apartheid, and it's literally about the power of one. First with your head, then with your heart. Okay, that's my favorite book of all time.
And what keeps you up at night?
Am I doing enough? Am I and how can I do more to help with equal pay issues, with leadership issues, with young women? I have this, and I don't know if it's a Catholic guilt thing of, man, can I be giving back to people more? Should I, be reaching out to these people? Which, it's and I wouldn't call it a curse, but we joke about the curse of those who care so much. But I think it's a great thing to have in life. I would never want it differently, but it is one of the things I constantly worry about.
That's a common answer for a lot of people like you, and it's actually really good to hear, and it's encouraging. What advice would you give to your younger self? Last question.
To not be so worried about my little boobs.
That's actually such a good answer. Not very many people would actually say it, but I think about all of the years that I've spent worrying about my body and image and how much time was wasted.
My short hair. I used to wear these big hoop earrings, Amy Jo, because I didn't want people thinking I was a boy, and I was always, of course, in soccer or athletic gear. And so I'd wear these big hoop earrings or padded bras. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the amount of energy we waste on that. And also, I find, and I talk to all these young girls right now, I mean, life, and I know life was intense when we were growing up, but it just seems like everything is really heavy, school and sports and what college you're getting into. And are you, taking the right classes, and have you checked all the boxes with community service and extracurriculars? And so taking a moment to breathe and find joy in little things and laugh at yourself and find friends who will laugh with you, not at you, but with you, is just, I think, so important. And right now, I just feel like there's an intensity that is super heavy with young kids that we as parents have to remind ourselves to back off. Good Lord. I mean, there's a lot of weight on their shoulders that makes me worried.
That's a very kind of liberating way to wrap up our conversation. And I can't thank you enough for your time. What you are doing is so important, and I'll make sure to follow up with show notes on links to places that people can go for more information, and we'll talk more offline about your book and when it's coming out and all that stuff. So thank you so much for joining me.
Can I just say thank you for doing this and exposing the world to all these why notters? I think it's so healthy. So I just, when you sent that first email, I was like, I literally went, yes! I love this idea, the why notters.
Oh, I'm glad you like it. It's very general, but I like it that way. I mean, because it's just, I think the world would be a better place if we asked ourselves that question more, and it will get us down to what it is that we really want to be doing and be better versions of ourselves. So thank you. This episode is also brought to you by Withings. Withings invents smart products and apps that fit into any lifestyle to help you track and aim to improve your health. I've been using Withings every day for about 1.5 years now, and I am a big fan. One of the things I love the most about the Withings app is their leaderboard step tracking feature, because I love some friendly competition. Having a leaderboard has been incentive to be more active, and I've even gotten my family involved. Although my dad did try to cheat one day by putting his phone in his horse's saddle. But whether I'm competing with my friends on the other side of the globe, my family, or Dorado, my dad's horse, we're all connecting through our health goals. I just got the Withings Watch 2, which syncs to the app so I can disconnect and not always have my phone with me, but still track my progress. Withings products can track your sleep and weight too. Knowledge is power. Go to withings.com and use coupon code WhyNotNow25 to get 25% off your order and free shipping. So do you see what I mean about Julie? What an incredible human being. I'll keep you posted on when her Disney book is released. We're a few episodes in now, and we've heard from some inspiring Why Notters. I want to hear what your Why Not Now is. Please share it with me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Amy Jo Martin. Again, I want to thank you for listening and for all of your feedback. I'm learning so much from episode to episode. And I read every single comment, response, and review because this show is my Why Not Now. I can't thank you enough for taking the journey with me. I'll send a signed copy of my New York Times best-selling book, Renegades Write the Rules, to the first 200 people who listen, rate, and leave an honest review of the podcast in iTunes. And you'll also get a free month subscription from our friends at Headspace. This is only available to Why Not Now listeners. Once you've left a rating and review on iTunes, just email your iTunes handle name and your mailing address to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com, and we'll get your package in the mail to you. For detailed show notes, head to amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. That's where you'll find links to things we discussed on the show, special offers, and how you can keep in touch with guests. And what do you think of the music? I'm digging it. Hat tip to my buddies Ash and Devin at Rock Salt Music for our tunes today. You just listened to the talented John Coggins in Let's Go and Let It Ride. And a jump high five to my talented husband, Richard Greer, for producing the show and being patient with me. See you next time. Until then, why not now?